All right, I want to talk Pittsburgh Steelers legend calling out Mike Tomlin in such a curious way, but somewhat of an eye-opening way, and I'm very excited to dive into this. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at DraftKings. What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming. You can bet on it. And the best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers who bet $5 get $300 instantly in bonus bets and $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Football season is finally here, and DraftKings Sportsbook is the place to be. For me, it's all about pregame and live game, making sure I hit every chance I have to stay in on the action. DraftKings Sportsbook is where I do it. New customers who bet $5 get $300 instantly in bonus bets and $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just sign up using my promo code ALLSTEELERS and get in on the action. DraftKings Sportsbook, where all the touchdowns matter. Alrighty, I want to talk Debo and his words on the Debo and Joe Hayden podcast. For those of you who don't know who Debo is, it's James Harrison. And he had some very interesting things to say about Mike Tomlin. He shared the story of Mike T and his time near the end of, I know I'm lagging here. It happens every single time I switch browsers, every single time. StreamYard just freaks out. It hates to happen. I don't know what's going on. He talks about Mike Tomlin, the end of his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, how things went down, where things ended or went wrong between him and his head coach. And he had this to say. He said, quote, where my relationship with Tomlin broke down was towards the end. He always says, ask the tough questions. I'll give you the tough answers. I was asking the tough questions, but I wasn't getting the tough answers. I was getting the answers that he thought that would appease me. Where mine really fell apart is either Tennessee or Indy. When I get to the game, Joe, I am a no dress. I have no uniform in my locker. I am a game day scratch, and I ain't been told a word till I walk in and see it. I told him right then and there, I said, listen, if I ain't playing, I ain't staying, and I left. You're not even talking to me and telling me anything. You just blatantly lying. You thought that personal relationship you had was going to get you honesty. No, it's going to get you what he needs to tell you to keep his business, keep his position, to keep what he needs going so he can keep his job at this business. I think a very eye-opening quote about a head coach that is as respected as they come in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is top dog to a lot of guys. You talk Mike Tomlin, you talk respect. That is two hand in hand for any player that's ever come through the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room. James Harrison and Mike Tomlin have since, sorted things out. Things are fine. To me, I read this, I watched it and went, oh, snap. That's definitely something. It's definitely something. Mm-hmm. Do you look at it and feel the same way? Was it as eye-opening for you as I think it was for me?
Yeah. Yeah. So I found this to be very surprising, especially, given the recent conversations, narratives surrounding head coach Mike Tomlin. Like, I think of another example real quick from this offseason specifically. There were tough conversations had throughout the team, and I feel like that is something that has become a sort of like hallmark of Mike Tomlin's coaching style. The way he communicates with his players is that they have these quote unquote tough conversations a lot, and they are able to have some sort of resolution or peace about them. And I look at sort of the cornerback room as an example. Like, Joey Porter Jr. comes into this season thinking he's the number one cornerback, the absolute leader of the room. A couple months later, things totally change. And as we've heard from all parties in the cornerback room and Mike Tomlin, they had to have the talk where he was like, listen, I know, Joey, you want to be the top dog, but this is Jalen Ramsey's room. That's a tough conversation to me. And for a head coach to navigate that difficult sort of issue is just another testament to Mike Tomlin and how he has generated this respect around the league. So for them to contrast that with the story of James Harrison, somebody who has a very deep, long relationship with Mike Tomlin, for that to go down the
Agreed.
way he said it did, really strikes me awkwardly. It's surprising. It doesn't seem like a Mike Tomlin way of handling a tough situation, and it feels very, very surprising to me that, given that this was the end of James Harrison's career, there was no blunt conversation between he and Tomlin regarding his role, the expectations of having this, late 30s linebacker back for a second stint with the team. There was no conversations beforehand about, you're probably going to be you might not get a hat some weeks, or you might only be a rotation player some weeks. Like, I just find it crazy that there wasn't this tough conversation that was had between James Harrison and Mike Tomlin, and that he had to be shocked by he walking into a locker room and finding out he wasn't playing. That seems
Yeah.
wild to me. So yes, I'm in agreement with you that this was something. I felt like this was very much something when I read it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I didn't read it and go like, oh, Mike Tomlin's this like undercover jerk. You know what I mean? I didn't read it and go
Mhm.
like Mike Tomlin is a bad guy and he treats his players terribly. I read it as like, oh, maybe Mike Tomlin is not always the guy that we hear he is. You know what I mean? And maybe there's more to these conversations, and maybe there are two sides to every story. And just like you
Mhm.
said, maybe Joey Porter has that conversation and takes it as I'm pissed off, or it's, I mean, you could go at it as like, I mean, the other side of the coin where it's Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are told the whole time what the game plan is when Russ comes back, and he's pissed off, but he's straightforward about it. And maybe that's not always the case. Maybe there's something different. Maybe Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett are told that there is a quarterback competition when Mitch Trubisky shows up, but the offensive line is told that Mitch Trubisky's the starter. Maybe it goes both ways. I think that there are probably times where this, glorious, all respected Mike Tomlin is not the guy that, or does not, he shares a motive. I think that's the way to go about this. I think at times
Mhm.
Mike T might have a motive that is geared towards certain things or aligned in certain ways that maybe not or don't fit best for every player involved, and might lead to some
Mhm.
guys getting pissed off. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like,
Yeah.
I don't take it as like Mike T's this terrible person. I just
No.
take it as the cloak of Mike Tomlin, and Aaron Rodgers says this all the time. Mike Tomlin is a guy that just has conversations. It feels like you could talk to him and there is no motive. Maybe there's a
Mhm.
cloak with a motive behind it, and we don't really know that all the time, and maybe the players don't know that all the time, and maybe sometimes it leads to situations kind of like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna attempt to spin it just one more way here. And I kind of am okay with reading about this and coming to a conclusion that maybe Mike Tomlin isn't, is flappable, isn't perfect in every single way. Like, I'm totally okay with this idea that maybe this situation was something that he did not handle perfectly well and has since
Mhm.
learned from.
Yeah.
This would have been several years ago, right? In the time since, there have been lots of difficult conversations, positional battles, veterans versus rookies, all types of situations that were tough to navigate, dynamics that Mike Tomlin had to lead the team through that have gone
Yeah.
well. We have not heard since or afterwards that it was terrible behind closed doors. For it to be just one, and with someone like, James Harrison, who is a very strong personality, like, he comes in there and he dominates every single room that he is in. I think if there's gonna be some area to mess up in, it might
Yeah.
be with James Harrison, So I'll give
Agreed.
Tomlin a little bit of grace. Seems like if it did go down exactly how James Harrison describes, it seems like that was a learning moment for Mike Tomlin, and he has
Yeah.
since taken that information, improved, and it is probably just, again, feeding into this engine, this machine that is Mike Tomlin, being this sort of like symbol of respect and availability and transparency for NFL players to sort of cling to. So,
Yeah.
that's my other spin that is fully in Mike T's favor and probably how he got so confident, like he talked about the other day.
Yeah, I like that. I like that spin, and I think that it kind of does. It matches up very well to what the situation very well could be. Very well could be. All right.